Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Shila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Shila Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki, Shri Jai Nitai ki. Okay, spricht eigentlich jeder Englisch hier? Ein bisschen, oder? Bisschen. Everybody speaks English otherwise?
Yes.
We don't have Russian translation today, huh? Ah, okay. Yeah, so for those who want to also follow, we're reading today from the Bhagavad-gita as it is, in the 6th chapter. And actually somebody knows the exact verse? Huh? 45, huh?
45.
No, 46 I think. 46, yeah. Yeah, I remember also 46. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So today we're reading from the Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 6, which is called Jnana Yoga, text number 46. Tapasvibhyo diko yogi jnanibhyo pimato dikaha kamibhyas chadiko yogi tasmat yogi babajuna.
Welche Nummer?
46. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Purport. When we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the supreme absolute truth. Such a process is named differently by various practitioners in terms of the particular method adopted. When the linking process is predominantly in fruitive activities, it is called karma yoga. When it is predominantly empirical, it is called jnana yoga. And when it is predominantly in a devotional relationship with the Supreme Lord, it is called bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga, or Krishna consciousness, is the ultimate perfection of all yogas, as will be explained in the next verse. The Lord has confirmed herein the superiority of yoga, but he has not mentioned that it is better than bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is full spiritual knowledge, and therefore nothing can excel it. Asceticism, or how do you say this?
Asceticism.
Huh?
Asceticism.
Asceticism without self-knowledge is imperfect. Empiric knowledge without surrender to the Supreme Lord is also imperfect. And fruitive work without Krishna consciousness is a waste of time. Therefore, the most highly praised form of yoga performance mentioned here is Bhakti Yoga, And this is still more clearly explained in the next verse. Omagyanati mirandasya ginandala shalakaya shakshurum militam minatasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I read once more the verse. Tapasvibhyo diko yogi Jnanibhyo pi matodika Kamibhyascha diko yogi Tasmat yogi bhavajana. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Yeah, so who of us didn't hear of yoga so far? Everybody heard of yoga, right? Even in the Western world, we heard of yoga. And so, but what comes, I mean, maybe if you're from India, maybe something else comes to your mind, but in the Western world, if you hear about yoga, first thing comes to your mind is some people who make some stretching of the bones. Prabhupada used to say also like sitting like pretzels. You know pretzels? This wonderful Bavarian bread. And he got like doing yoga is like sitting like pretzels. Because the legs look like a pretzel. But it's not about, and he used to say this just to make that it's not about some asanas. Yeah, that's a term for this exercises. Yoga is actually not about the asanas, it's about the linking process, like he explained in the beginning of the purport. Of course, yoga is also helpful if you just do it for the exercise, and it's also pacifying the mind, like but it's actually this yoga, this type of yoga, these asanas, it's just one part of Ashtanga yoga. And Asta means 8 and Anga means limbs. So this Ashtanga yoga, it has 8 different levels practically, or different limbs. And this exercise is just one of them. And another one is, for example, this pranayama, like this breathing method. And yama and niyama is like accepting and rejecting, like accepting those things which are helpful in the yoga practice and rejecting those things which are causing disturbance. And like this, there's different levels of the or different limbs of the yoga process. And what is famous in the West as yoga is just one part. And but actually, this Ashtanga yoga is also a linking process. It's also meant to link ourselves with our supreme identity, actually. And yeah, so because that's the question, like, who am I? That is the ultimate question. What is the question in which is actually for everyone is relevant and which is a center of the yoga practice. And actually the Bhagavad-gita, it is actually teaching us who we are. And of course in the yoga teachings we learn to know who we are. So who are we? Somebody knows?
The soul.
A soul. Okay. So what is the difference between, or what is the soul? The next question.
Ich kann ja auf Deutsch erklären.
Okay. Somebody can explain in English, or you willst du in Englisch, in Deutsch sagen und ich übersetze?
Die Seele ist ewig.
The soul is eternal.
Existiert vor der Geburt und nach der Geburt, nach dem Tod.
Is existing before the birth and after the death.
Und verirrt sich hier in dieser materiellen Welt und lernt hier Liebe zu Krishna zu entwickeln, um dann in der Gemeinschaft, in Liebe mit ihm in der spirituellen Welt weiterhin zu leben. Das ist das Ziel.
Okay, das muss ich übersetzen. So, it kind of got lost in this material world, but it can learn here to love Krishna and to live in eternal association with Krishna. Okay. Wow, that's quite a good definition of the soul. Like Prabhupada also used to say, or some devotees say, like this. Everybody knows in India, yeah, that before death, like the soul exists before the death, before the birth and after the death, right? Everybody knows, huh? Even the rickshawala, it knows. Even those who are driving the rickshaws, you know, they are like kind of serving everybody, but they understand, and they're not considered to be the most intelligent of society, but they know actually much more than the most intelligence of the Western society, that the soul is eternal, that it has taken birth in a certain body. This body is temporary, but the soul exists before the birth and after the death. So even everybody knows in India. It's a common sense, and it makes sense, huh? It does make sense. It's actually because all of us, we want to be eternal, right? Nobody wants to die. Somebody here who wants to die? Like if I give you the opportunity to die now, would you say, yes, I'm ready for it? No, we are not. I mean, of course, some people may commit suicide, but it's just because of frustration with their life. Yeah? It's not because they don't want to live, but the suffering of life became so much that they cannot tolerate it anymore. But actually they also want to live and want to be happy. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki Jai. Jai Nitai ki Jai. So that's the nature of the soul, to be eternal, and therefore we don't want to die. And also the nature of the soul is to be happy. Sat Chit Ananda, that are the three qualities of the soul. So we had the eternal, the Sat, and the Ananda is the happiness. And what is the Chit? Somebody knows?
All knowing.
Yes, all knowing, full of knowledge. Yeah. So that's the qualities of the soul. That's also natural for us, that we want to understand things. We want, and that's natural. Like I have a small boy. He's now 1 year and 9 months, and he wants to understand like how things are working. You know, even I mean, of course, it's very basic. But then if they grow up a little bit more, they want to understand more and more. And as adults, we also want to understand, you know. Therefore, we have newspapers because we want to know, you know, what is happening there, and how is it working, and all these things. Yeah. So that's natural, but is the material body cannot fulfill these natural desires. The material body is very much limited. It is temporary. Everybody knows. Whoever is going to argue that is not considered to be he's not considered to be intelligent, or like actually not even considered to be worthy of discussing. You know, like somebody would say, "No, my body is eternal." Like you would think, like, yeah, what is he saying? So the body is temporary. One big problem with the body, and everybody knows it. And the body is also causing a lot of suffering. Also, everybody knows. Like we just have to go out of the door nowadays, and it's causing trouble, huh? Isn't it? Especially if you're coming from warmer climates. I mean, but also for us, it's like trouble. Yeah, to go out, you know, and then you. Anyways, I came with a car, for example, today. But even inside the car, you know, you're touching the steering wheel and your hands are freezing because it was so cold. The cold went into the car and the steering wheel got cold, and now I'm sitting in the car and my hands are freezing, you know. So there's suffering everywhere, all kinds of suffering, unlimited ways of suffer. It's unbelievable, like in what way we can suffer in this material world, in this material body. Anyways, and we don't want to talk too much about it, but it's important to be aware about it. It's very important to be aware about it, because otherwise we think this body might be the source of happiness. And we think like that from time to time. We think like, oh yeah, I can enjoy like this, I can get a heater, that's some enjoyment. But what kind of enjoyment is it? It's actually just the end of suffering, It's just that we are not freezing anymore. That's the enjoyment of a heater, And then we can think like, okay, I can get some ice cream if the heater is strong enough, and we're ready for the ice cream, And we like it even though it's cold, but it is sweet. And so we like to enjoy the ice cream and think, wow, that's enjoyment. And in so many ways we try to enjoy, but it's always causing some trouble. If we eat too much ice cream, then we get a stomach ache. If we only eat ice cream, it's a problem. If we only would eat the things which are like really, really have extravagant, like intense taste, like would be a trouble. Anyways, so there's so many ways this body is suffering, and we have to understand that if we try to enjoy, that's actually it is always coming with suffering actually. And like even the heavenly planets, it's explained like you can enjoy for a long time, and there's no consequences also for the sense enjoyment. There's no bad karma, you don't commit bad karma there, but it's temporary still, so then what's the use of it, It's like going to the holiday, like working the whole year, and like we heard about the different yoga processes. So there's this karma kanda. It's not yoga, it's a fruitive activities done for accumulating good karma, and then with this good karma we can have a better birth in the next life. Okay, and that's a little bit like working for the whole year, for going to a holiday. Then you go to a holiday, and actually sometimes I was in Iceland for distributing books there, Srila Prabhupada books. So it was some adventure, but it was for serving Krishna. And actually in India it's common also. Indians don't go on holidays, they go on pilgrimage. So you also have some adventure, you go to a different place, but you do it also as a service for Krishna. It's actually very nice. So you have some different atmosphere and everything, you have some different experiences, but you're all connecting it to Krishna. Like we've been in Jagannath Puri, and it's at 6 o'clock in the morning when the sun is rising, the beach is full of pilgrims, like if you go to Italy at 6 o'clock in the morning, the beach is empty, nobody watches the sunrise, and maybe there's some drunkards there, that maybe from the last night, but otherwise. So those who go to a different place for pilgrimage, they make spiritual advancement. But if you go to a different place for sense gratification, actually you accumulate bad karma most of the time. Yeah. And actually, you have some. It's just causing suffering. So I was there once in Iceland for distributing books, and then we had a plane going back to, I don't know, maybe to Berlin, yeah. And so the plane didn't arrive, we were there in the airport, and then like everybody was waiting. It was full of German passengers, the airplane, or and for us it was not a problem, We just chanted and read Srila Prabhupada books and so on. But you could see like those who were on vacation, and actually it was because the mind was set on, okay, this is enjoying time, So if there's some trouble in the enjoying time, then it's extra suffering actually, because it was meant for your enjoyment, you know. I also remember when I was not Krishna conscious, I also tried to enjoy in the weekends, you know, like going to this party and that party, you know, and having this idea like, maybe today I can enjoy in this way or that way, you know, and didn't happen, you know, or it was always some problem happening, you know. That's a material world. So, yeah, anyways, that's the problem of this material body. And even if you're in the heavenly planets and there's not these problems happening and you can enjoy for a long time, still it's temporary in the end. You have to give it up, and that's also painful. It's also very painful then. So why to bother with all this pain? Yeah? And therefore it's explained one should perform yoga. And with yoga is meant to link, the linking process. Prabhupada very nicely explains it here. When we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the Supreme Absolute Truth. And so we heard about the Supreme Absolute Truth. So very essential knowledge is that we are not this body, we are a spirit soul. Questions is, what is the qualities of the soul? And you explained that it's eternal. It's actually living in the spiritual world with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, Prabhu, maybe you can also explain how they can get some warm water or even make a tea if they want to, our guests, because just offer them. So, yeah. So the linking process is for linking our consciousness with the Supreme. And this is explained like a fish being in the water. So if the fish is out of the water, you can offer him all kinds of facilities for enjoying, but the fish will never be happy because it's not in his element. And it's the suffering actually. Even though there might be a very big TV screen and a wonderful movie, or might have like some lemonade or whatever, it's not gonna enjoying, you know. Maybe for some moment it can forget the suffering by seeing some exciting thing on the screen, or by tasting the lemonade. I don't know if fish like lemonade or not, but let's assume it likes it, or has a cigarette. But it may enjoy for some time, a few moments, but basically it's in a suffering condition. So actually the sages, they understand that in this material world, in this material body, we are in a suffering condition. So actually what for the water is, for the fish is the water, that for us is to be connected with the Supreme Consciousness. In this way, we will not have to endure suffering. Because, like this one quality of the soul, this chit to understand, we always understand that we are a servant of God. It sounds sometimes a little bit tough, because we don't want to be servants. We want to be served and not servants. That's the nature. Everybody who's in the material world, if he was not coming on a mission by the Supreme as a servant of the Lord, then he's here because he wants to imitate God. He wants to be the one who's served. Yeah. So you can reflect on yourself, and actually it's said that most of us came here because we are here on the mission to imitate God, not on the mission to deliver the message of Godhead and to be the servant of God. So all of us have this problem that we want to be the Supreme and want to be in the center. And because of this problem, we have this body and we can identify with it. And therefore we are actually not understanding that we are servants of the Supreme. And it's a very, very, very strong and deep attachment we have in our heart. So we might even now agree, okay, I understand, I'm a servant of God, I want to surrender to God. But of course it's like not so easy. It's not like, okay, it's good. It's very important to have these moments. But it's also good, or we have to be aware that we might have many tendencies which are still more like configured in a way that it's for being ourselves being the center, like having this world view. And so this is our problem. And by performing yoga, actually one can overcome this problem. So it's a linking process. Prabhupada sometimes says, Jai Nitai BG. Jai Nitai BG. So by performing yoga, we can link our consciousness with Krishna or with the Supreme, and actually there's process described, because it's not like just I say I want to be linked to Krishna and here I am linked to Krishna. No. And what is very interesting, like Prabhupada explains here, he's speaking in the next sentence, he's explaining. When the linking process is predominantly in fruitive activity, it's called karma yoga. When it is predominantly empirical, it is called jnana yoga. And when it's predominantly in a devotional relationship with the Supreme Lord, it is called bhakti yoga. So this is actually the main yoga passes described in the Bhagavad-gita. Karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. So let's maybe somebody knows what is karma yoga. I mean, Pat knows for sure, this I know. Maybe somebody else knows. Maybe it's even from our new guests, somebody knows. I don't know if you've been to a temple before. Yeah. You heard of bhakti yoga before? Or,
Yes.
Yeah. You heard of karma yoga before also?
I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
You might have heard karma.
Of course.
Yeah.
Karma yoga.
Karma and yoga.
Yeah. That's why I say I don't know. I know karma, I know yoga.
Yeah.
Like maybe you can relate.
Yeah.
So actually, karma yoga is it's a way of connecting with the Supreme, but by engaging still in fruitive activities actually. So actually, it's by offering the results of the work we do to the Supreme. Or even if we go a little bit further, then we can also actually try to understand what kind of activities once the Supreme wants me to do, and in this way offer our work to the Supreme. And so this is very much, or very easily actually, for us to understand. Like, we might have some certain ideas, and therefore work in a certain way, and some certain tendencies, and then we understand, okay, I accept, okay, I should do something for the better of the world, or I should do something for liberating myself, and then we offer some of the results of our work to Krishna. And another term in that connection, which is interesting, is called Karma Mishra Bhakti. Maybe somebody heard about that before. It is Karma Mishra Bhakti, and Mishra means mixed. So this is a mixture of karma yoga and bhakti yoga practically. So this is also, especially if we are practicing already Krishna consciousness, devotional service, then we are mostly, if we are not on the pure platform, we are on that platform. And that means, like, we still have some material ideas of enjoyment and material desires, and from time to time we still engage our energies in that. And but we also understand that we should actually surrender to Krishna, and then from time to time we understand that, and then we give up some material tendencies, or offer our results, or stop some activity with the idea to perform some devotional service. In that sense, it's a karma mishra bhakti. So actually today we heard about karma kanda, which is actually performing some pious activities to get some benefits, some good karma. Then we heard of karma yoga, which means to offer the results of our work in the service of the Lord. And then we hear about karma mishra bhakti, which is like a mixture of having our own tendencies or ideas of still enjoying, and our understanding that we want to serve the Lord and performing some devotional activities. Yeah, and actually the same thing is there for jnana. So jnana, there's jnana yoga is the next term Prabhupada explains here or mentions here. That is called the empirical knowledge. So the jnanis, they understand that I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul. So, but they want to. They don't understand necessarily that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and that they are servants of the Lord. And so they want to understand this material nature and also actually many jnanis, they want to merge into the Supreme. That's the ideas of the many jnanis, to become one with the Supreme. And that's the ultimate result. And so but if we and then we can perform jnana kanda, we can perform jnana yoga, and we can perform jnana mishra bhakti, and that's the same like in with the devotional service. So if we have performed jnana yoga, then we have some understanding that that Krishna is the Supreme, but still we might be distracted by our intelligence or by the knowledge we have, Then the jnani yogi, he thinks he knows very much and is very intelligent and kind of a philosopher, and therefore he gets distracted from devotional service. So it's actually very interesting. So as I said in the beginning, even the rickshawalas in India know that we're not this body but a spiritual soul, and even a rickshawala, if he performs bhakti yoga, he's actually he can be considered more intelligent or more advanced spiritually than a jnani yoga who might have a lot of knowledge and can debate with all kinds of people and all kinds of academic degrees, but still, what's the use of it? If you have all this, if you can, but still not understand the essential truth of being a servant of God. So and therefore Prabhupada explains later in this, or in continues to the purport with explaining that when it is predominantly in devotional service in relation with the Supreme Lord, it's called Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, or Krishna consciousness, is the ultimate perfection of all yogas, as will be explained in the next verse. The Lord has confirmed herein the superiority of yoga, but he has not mentioned that it is better than Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is full spiritual knowledge, and therefore nothing can excel it. So that's the interesting thing. Bhakti Yoga is a full spiritual knowledge. So Bhakti Yoga fully understands that Krishna is the Supreme Being. And because Prabhupada was explaining, referring to the next verse, next week we will have a whole lecture on that, but it's actually a very important verse from the Bhagavad-gita, and a very important verse also for explaining the importance of Bhakti Yoga. and I even learned it once, so maybe I can know it by heart. Yoginam api savisham madgaten anta atmanam Shradavam bhattate yumam same yuktatamo sat mataha. So this means, and of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and he is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So that's very interesting. So this practically what we hear, Krishna is speaking, and he says like the one who has great faith and who always abides in me. What is abide means like you know what abides mean?
Rest.
Was steht denn in Deutsch da?
Immer in mir weilt.
In mir weilt, ja. Yes. Who is always in me? It's in German it says like that. Who's always thinking of me practically, no? But this is who thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me. He's most intimately united with me in yoga, and he's the highest of all. So the most intimate connection with the Supreme is possible by these aspects which we just heard before in this verse. Like if you want to meditate more about this, you can remember this verse. It's 647. And so these activities, bhakti yoga activities, they Krishna says this is the highest form of yoga, and those who perform it are most connected with him. And Krishna says, that is my opinion. Interesting, huh? So that's Krishna's opinion. And I mean, Krishna is speaking the Bhagavad-gita, yeah? And Bhagavad-gita is called the crown jewel of the Vedic scriptures, yeah? So it's an authoritative scripture, yeah? It's like Bhagavad-gita explaining about yoga, yeah? And Krishna is speaking the Bhagavad-gita, and Krishna says this in the Bhagavad-gita. And therefore, alone because of that, we should have faith in this process of bhakti yoga, and we should endeavor in this process of bhakti yoga. And then we can actually also more and more connect with Krishna. This bhakti yoga is also a process, and those who follow this path, they will more and more come to this realize this that Krishna is the Supreme, and they are servants of him. More and more you will realize it, more and more we can perform authentic devotional service, which is not distracted by jnana tendencies or karma tendencies. More and more we understand what surrender means to Krishna, and more we can, in this way, we be connected and be linked to the Supreme Consciousness, like what Prabhupada said. And that is a way which is explained to come to perfection in this material world. That is the way how to overcome all the suffering. And it's interesting, if you're really in this consciousness, then if you're really connected with Krishna, then actually you can overcome all sufferings. Of course, you may still experience suffering, but you can always take shelter in Krishna. And Krishna is always helping, immediately. And there's actually examples of many devotees who's proving that, actually. And I mean, one example, of course it's from a different tradition, but it's kind of fits now because the Christmas time is coming. Jesus Christ, he was hanging on the cross. And what did he say? And somebody knows what he said?
God forgive them, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like you're nailed to a cross, it's not a very comfortable situation, right? It's actually not only the nails in the hand, but you're actually hanging on these nails, you know, like it's like and actually the blood is going out and everything, like it's unbelievable pain, you know. But in this situation, Jesus Christ said, please forgive them for what they don't know what they're doing, you know. So that's possible because he was God realized, no? And yeah, of course we have many examples also in the Bhakti tradition. And yeah, I mean, so let's go for it, huh? Let's perform Bhakti Yoga. That's basically the conclusion. And it's very simple. We just have to remember Krishna always, and we should never forget him. That's the thing. And of course, we have certain principles we follow, which help us to always remember Krishna and never forget him. But that's the ultimate rule. Okay, if somebody has a question or comment. Yes, Prabhu.
In the book signed Shunai the Selbst,
Yeah.
I read that Prabhupada said that Gyan Yoga, a person follows Gyan Yoga when he wants to achieve immortality.
Yeah.
So, like to go beyond the human body, but to not experience who he really is. Like he's the soul, he knows that, but he doesn't want to accept that truth.
Yeah.
So, is it possible that I can follow two paths at the same time? Like Gyan Yoga and Bhakti Yoga? Like I can achieve immortality, but being immortal, I can always serve Krishna?
I mean, that's happening if you perform Bhakti Yoga, then you become also immortal. It's not your motivation, like it's not like the Jnani, he just wants to end the suffering practically. He understands that this world is full of suffering, and his motivation is to end that. And the Bhakti Yogi, he wants to serve Krishna, and he doesn't care if he's suffering or not. He understands that he's not connected with Krishna, then he's suffering. And that's something we cannot imitate, of course, you know. We can say to ourselves, okay, I want to be a Bhakti Yogi, so I don't care about suffering. But if suffering is coming, we are like, we know, we can see how much we can really tolerate, or how much we are actually also ready to take suffering for serving Krishna. That is what the devotees doing. They're ready to take suffering for serving Krishna. And it's not like they're doing taking extra suffering and think that is service for Krishna. But if there's a service to be done, like Arjuna, he was just before a fight, you know, and he didn't want to fight, so it was not again his desire in that sense, you know, but it was the desire of Krishna, so he was ready to do it. And he understood that is the best for me, for my opponents, and for everybody else, if I follow that. Because Krishna is the supreme, and I'm his servant. So it's so easy, but it's to really do it, it's very difficult, and to really live like that. And so the Jnani Yogi, he then thinks like, the Jnani, he thinks like, Krishna, that's too complicated for me. I just want to end the suffering. And
Jnanis think that they are God themselves.
Sorry?
Jnanis think that they're God themselves.
Some of them, yeah. That's the tendencies that might happen. I mean, like we said before, everybody thinks himself to be the center or the supreme. But the Jnanis, they might really think that is a goal. Some of the Jnanis, they think like that is the goal, to understand that you're God. And
I had one more question. Like in the next verse, like the translation says, like at the end Krishna says, that is my opinion. Why did he say opinion? Like, why didn't he say this is what pleases me? Why did he use the word opinion?
Yeah, I mean, if you see like the word for word translation, it's mataha. It's called considered. Huh? I think this opinion is, so it's considered to be. Yeah, I don't know why he says like this. I never heard a comment from a devotee, like Acharya, but I guess he says because it's basically the same like what you said, huh? But what you say, huh? Like it's what I consider, what pleases me. It's my opinion.
But then, like, Krishna is God himself. He does not need to give any opinions. He can just give the truth and like be done with it. Like,
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know why Prabhupada translated like this, and I'm not so much into the this. Maybe there's some devotees who have some good explanation for that. I'm not sure if somebody is here. Maybe Kunja Bihari Prabhu. But anyways, I also like it. Like if that Prabhupada says like this, it's my opinion. I mean, it's because if you love Krishna, then you want to know his opinion. Huh? If you really consider him a person, if you really want to serve him, then you want to know what do you think, or how do you see it? I don't know.
The one thing that comes to my mind is Krishna gives a lot of knowledge in the Bhagavad-gita. Maybe this is just an emphasis that this is important for him. Therefore, it's my opinion. So I understand it like this. It's not more personal. Not just, oh, here I have a lot of wisdom. But here's also wisdom, and this is important for me, especially. So this is how I understand.
Yes, like what I interpreted from this verse was that not everyone is a devotee when they read the Bhagavad-gita. So when Krishna says this is my opinion, maybe he is trying to be humble, and so that people understand that this is what he wants and this is what we believe, and then maybe people can follow his opinions, then they would realize that this is the truth.
Actually, I think because Krishna is defeating a lot, these different ideas, So I don't think that he, in that sense, is humble. I mean, it's the last verse of the 6th chapter, and the 6th chapter is about. It's actually about jnana. The first to the 6th chapter. It's said like this. You can divide the Bhagavad-gita in three parts. First to 6th chapter is jnana. 6th to 9th chapter is bhakti. To 12th chapter is bhakti, and from the 13th to 7th to 12th, and from the 13th to the 18th chapter is karma. So this is the last verse from the jnana section, and it's going to the bhakti, and the bhakti is the most confidential knowledge, also explained. And he in this verse, Prabhupada also translates it. You can see it's becoming confidential. He says like, and of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental, loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and he is the highest of all. This is my opinion. So maybe I think because it's becoming more confidential, and those who don't accept Krishna, then they can say, okay, it's his opinion, but I have a different opinion. And those who, but then what's the need of reading Bhagavad-gita, If you just think it's Krishna's opinion and his opinion doesn't matter, then you shouldn't read Bhagavad-gita, then you should write your own books, or whatever. Maybe some cookbooks or something. I don't know.
I have one more question.
Okay, one more question. Do we have time for one more question? Okay.
This verse, and then there was another verse maybe in the 18th chapter, Manmana bhava matpatto mattajimam namaskuru mami vaishasi satyam pratijana kritsuna. So like Krishna says that worship me, become my devotee, offer obeisance to me, and surely you will come to me. And like he says, I don't really remember the exact translation, but what's the difference between that verse and this verse? Like become a yogi, abide in me, think of me.
I mean, I think this verse is especially because it's in the end of this yoga chapter, Let's wait, you can open the door and then. So in this in this chapter, the 6th chapter, Krishna especially spoke about yoga and the yoga path, and so then he's starting to explain about like the verse before. He's explaining what we just heard. You know that. Let's read the verse once more. If you have it. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruit of worker. Therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. So explains like the importance of this knowledge we gave because of the yogi is so important. But then he says that of all the yogis, the bhakti yogi is the supreme. And so that's the meaning of this verse. Therefore, Krishna is saying that because then he starts to speak about bhakti yoga. And actually, this verse is coming also in the 9th chapter, and it's actually that's a.
The 9th chapter, only the last 2 lines are different.
Yes.
And that with that same verses.
Yeah.
I was confusing these 3 verses actually.
Yeah. So in this verse, Krishna is explaining like how we can be always Krishna conscious. Huh? That's actually. I mean, in the 9th chapter is engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisance to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me.
Yes.
So he explains how we can be Krishna conscious, how we can be absorbed in him.
So like, is he building up to that point, or like in Karma Yoga, when he says this verse, he first gives an introduction to the truth, and then he slowly builds up to that most confidential knowledge.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, Krishna is repeating also some messages in the Bhagavad-gita, like it's no harm. Like, of course, there's some similarity in the verses, but it's still a different. It's in a different context, and it's of course that's the essence. Actually, recently I heard Prabhupada a lecture, and he said like Krishna consciousness is so easy. You just have to go to the temple and you worship Krishna there, and then you're Krishna conscious. Yeah? And then he said, and if you cannot do that, and then he quoted this verse, Man mana bhagavat bhakto madhyati mam namaskuru. And he said like, okay, if you cannot go to the temple, then you just engage your mind, always thinking of me, and become a devotee, offer obeisances. In this way, you're always the temple is always with you. That's the thing, you know. You cannot go to the temple. If you do that, engage your mind, you know, always. And then he said actually like, and you chant Hare Krishna, and Krishna is non-different from his name. So then Krishna is always there. So so this verse is of course very essential for understanding how we can engage or how we can be Krishna conscious. It's not the only verse. There's other verses also explaining that. We have to understand the whole thing. Therefore, Bhagavad-gita has 700 verses, so more, and not only one verse. But yeah, you can say this is like of course it's a very important verse. Yeah. It's mentioned 2 times in the Gita, and yeah. Okay, if there's some more questions or doubts, we can also speak during the prasadam, because there will be prasadam also. But first we can get the mercy of the lotus feet of Jagannath. You will also, if you want, if you pray, you can also distinguish, or how to say, like make all the doubts disappear. Hare Krishna. Shiva Prabhupada.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta